Bill Belichick was sitting behind me. And he's like, no, don't look at me. Keep facing forward.
Being in a girdle, so just like in underwear and basically like in a line one by one. Cam is my number one quarterback, and I don't think it's all that close for me right now. The way that he, I guess, moved between the groups a lot similar to Jaden Daniels.
Whether you need a quarterback, whether you need a receiver, a DB, an offensive lineman, or a head coach, you take Travis Hunter and then you figure it out after. Welcome back, you beautiful people. We're here on Air It Out. I'm your host, AJ Green. I think I got my guy Justin Pugh down there.
You don't recognize me?
I don't know.
I don't have a barber yet. I have no one to cut my hair, so I did it myself. The beard isn't looking as good as it does. I got the baby face going. Do I look younger?
I don't know. It looked like you did that with a butter knife, my boy. I ain't gonna lie. Let's talk about the NFL Combine this weekend. You went to the Combine, didn't you? Of course you
Of
were.
course.
What am I talking about? You were afraid as a first-round pick. Of course you went to the Combine. Talk to me about your experience down there, man.
Man, the Combine is crazy. It is the most stressful week of your entire life. When you get there, it's all medical to start. So they literally just have tape going through a hospital and just, hey, follow this line. You go to X-ray, you go to MRI. Every single team doctor looks at you. I had gotten a shoulder surgery before my senior year of college. So every team was poking and prodding. They wanted to see what my shoulder looked like, see if I was healthy. So the first day of medical, I was already tired. And then they expect you to go out there and perform physically. And it is a very strenuous week. So it starts with medical. I mentioned that. Then it actually goes to the mental side where you sit down with coaches every day and you draw up on the board. You get up on the board and they say, hey, draw up your favorite run play, draw up your favorite pass play. I remember the funniest story was I went into the Patriots and I sat down with Bill Belichick and that whole staff, and it's super intimidating. You want to impress these people. You want them to draft you. And I remember sitting down in my chair. I'm looking forward, facing the TV. I'm sitting next to Dante Scarnecchia, the offensive line coach, and Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator. Bill Belichick was sitting behind me. And I'm sitting there and they're like, hey, draw up your favorite play. Let's watch some clips of you. Tell us why you're doing this, that, why your technique is this way. And as I'm answering these questions, Belichick, who's behind me, not looking at me, I turn around to talk to him and answer Belichick. And he's like, no, don't look at me. Keep facing forward. And I don't know if the Patriots were doing mental warfare games, but I just remember being so stressed out. Then you got to go run your 40, your short shuttle, the 3-cone, all those different things. The only thing I didn't do at Combine was bench press, and I did it at my pro day because I was, like I said, I was coming off the shoulder surgery, so I wanted to make sure I was prepped for that. But it is a long week for these players. I wouldn't judge a book by its cover in terms of like what these guys do at the Combine on the field. What the Combine really is doing is let's check off some boxes. Like, all right, this guy is fast enough. He's going to run a 4.4, 4.3. Or he already hit over 20 reps on the bench press. We know that's not an issue. You're getting measurements, you're getting medical, and really the interviews are the biggest piece of the puzzle at the Combine because you get to sit down and actually talk football with these coaches. That is really what ends up being like the best thing for you. All right, I'm going to give you guys my stats real quick, and then I'm going to read the little bio of what they said about me. Just got to think it's funny. I ran a 5.14 40-yard dash. I ran a 1.79 10-yard split. So I had a really good 10-yard split. My 40 was average for offensive linemen. I was vertically challenged. I did a 28.5 vert. My broad was 8.7. 8.7 is not that great. My 3-cone was 7.45 seconds. And then my 20-yard shuttle was 4.63 seconds. And then my bench press, I did 23 reps at my pro day. They gave me a prospect grade of 73 points. So I don't know. I guess I said 87 is really good. They gave me a 73.
See, look, I would have loved.
They gave me my production score. I was the 4th ranked tackle. My athleticism score, I was the 8th ranked tackle. Oh, my total score was an 87. All right, my total score was 87.
That's not terrible. That's not bad, bro. You know what I'm saying?
I did get drafted first round, so that worked.
That's what I'm saying. Don't matter when I hit that bank account.
Pugh is a seasoned starter at offensive tackle with very good movement skills. However, he lacks adequate arm length and size to stick at offensive tackle going forward. He's best fit as a guard in a zone blocking scheme. Honestly, that was 100% accurate. They moved me from tackle to guard, and I ended up playing 11 years.
So honestly, he nailed it. They graded you pretty accurately. Who are some guys in this year's Combine that you would kind of put in that same situation and grade?
Well, what I'm going to talk about the winners, and I'm going to talk about the losers.
Okay,
and the one guy that I think made himself a bunch of money is Matthew Golden from Texas. His teammate, Isaiah Bond, said he was going to come out and run a 4.19. He was going to break the record. He ended up running a 4.4, but his teammate Matthew Golden ended up going out there running a 4.29 with a 1.4 yard or 1.49 second 10-yard split, which is just blazing fast.
But that's what I don't love about the 40. Because honestly, if they were to probably line up next to each other in race, Isaiah Bond might win that race, bro. That's what I don't love about the 40. It's such a physical, I mean, not, it's such a technical run. You feel me? You're never really going to ask a receiver to go from a standstill and run straight.
Another guy that I think made himself some money is Maxwell Harrison, the defensive back from Kentucky. He ran a 4.28. He was the fastest guy. I think anytime you go out and you can say I was the fastest guy at the combine, then you jump 39 and a half inch on your vertical, 10'9" broad jump. They're all elite marks. He showed himself, hey, not only have I put the film out there, I've gone out and backed it up and showed athleticism, and that's going to pay off down the road.
I, I wish you knew how much I hate that. That somebody could go out to a track meet and have the better numbers, and everyone thinks, oh, they're going to be a great player. Dude, I don't care how fast you are, how high you could jump. Tyson said, what did Tyson say? He said everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. Ain't that what they said? Everybody can run fast until you got to until they get hit with that thing. Then they caught up. I don't care how fast you was after that. I'm out of there.
I agree with you 100%. But then when you have the film saying, hey, this is an elite player, and then the
Yeah.
athleticism backs it up, then you feel much better about that selection. And that's something that I think is massive. I mean, here's another guy, Shamar Stewart, who is the outside edge rusher from Texas A&M. He only had 5.5 sacks last year, but at 6'5", 267 pounds, he ran a 4.59. He had a 40-inch vertical, and he had a 10.11 broad jump. He basically is the best athlete to come into the combine since 1999. That's eye-opening. But the question becomes, why did he have single-digit sacks the last few years? That's my only question mark there.
See, that's what I'm saying. Because if you just blindly listen to those numbers that you just said, you're thinking, how on earth is anybody get out the pocket?
Someone is going to take a chance on him because you look at those measurables and you're like, all right, he played at A&M. A&M's a very good school. He actually jumps out on the film. When you look at him go against Will Campbell, who's supposed to be the top tackle in this draft class, he had a good game against him. Now, Will Campbell got him a few times, but I think when you look at it, you see the production. Maybe the scheme, his coach had come out and said, hey, the scheme wasn't really to just pin your ears back and rush the passer. We were trying to collapse the pocket and cause turnovers. So all that kind of adds to the equation. So I don't want to just jump out and say just the numbers, but that's what the combine is, and that's what we get all excited about. But I think when you mesh the two together, you start seeing this dude is a freak, and he is going to get drafted very high.
So I feel like that's the significance of the combine, to do exactly what you just did, like that wow factor. You hear them numbers and those measurables, and a coach thinking, man, I don't care what you did in college. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use it better. Because if I'm a coach and I hear 6'5", 40-inch vertical, 4.5, what? I'm letting you do whatever you want to do. You want an inside shade, you want an outside shade, we'll cater off that. You feel what I'm saying? I'm like, bro, you're 4.5, go.
Ashton Genty didn't participate in the rest of the groups, but everyone else picked it up. I mean, Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, Ohio State's Trayvon Henderson, Bashul Tootin from Virginia Tech blew the combine away. My agent actually reps him, and he told me he was only at 90%, and he was first in 40-yard dash. He was like first or second in almost every other category, and he's only at 90%. He is going to do the rest at his pro day. So I think he's a guy who already made himself some money, but when it gets to his pro day, he's the most athletic of the bunch, and he could be a guy that round 2, round 3, that could easily sneak into those later rounds. So I know I mentioned Ashton Genty not participating at the combine. AJ, give me your thoughts on some of the other top-end prospects. I know Cam Ward didn't participate. Shedeur Sanders didn't. Abdul Carter had a foot injury. He wasn't able to participate. Mason Graham, another top pick, didn't. What are your thoughts on guys not doing anything at the combine?
If you're assuring to be one of those top 5 guys, I feel like at a certain point, the combine might hurt you more than help you. Because, you got these other guys who are in the hunt trying to get their name out there, trying to boost their draft stock. They mess around and go run faster than you. Or some scout on Twitter gets a clip of someone making a better throw than you. You're got. And it's like, you're not got. I'm sure you'll still probably hold your draft spot, but it's like for a little while, there's going to be that buzz, and everybody's comparing them to you. You know what I'm saying? Let's say Travis go out there and doesn't run a great time, which I don't see happening. But now you got that top 5 list come out. If he's not in that top 5 list, now everyone's like, oh, see, I told you.
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, look at Will Howard. He had some trouble completing balls in the quarterback session. And you're looking at it like if you're a Shador, you're Cam, and you don't have your receivers, you're not comfortable, you didn't sleep great. If I'm a quarterback, I'm probably not throwing. Like if my son was a quarterback, I'd be like, hey man, we're not throwing. We're going to throw at our pro day. But what I will do is I will sit down and I'll tell you my favorite plays, protections that I love, because the quarterback is so much up here. I would focus everything on the mental side of it when I got to the combine of showing these teams like who I am. Because I bet you Will Howard, even though he won the national championship, he made all the big throws throughout the year. Because he didn't complete many balls at the combine, it is going to hurt his draft stock a little bit. Coaches are going to look at it and they're going to create that little mental bias in their heads, or a GM's going to be like, ooh, I didn't like that. That was an easy throw. He should have hit it and he missed it. And that's how he can get himself in trouble. Here's another one that I have for you. Abdul Carter didn't participate because he ends up having a small injury in his foot, a fracture that might require a screw. He's opting not to get surgery. How do you feel about a guy? Do you think Abdul Carter should get surgery? They said it was only going to be out for 8 weeks.
You're asking me how do I feel about a guy opting not to do surgery?
If it's an 8-week surgery, he could be ready by training camp. So give no, because you haven't shown this yet. So you got to tell the crowd what's going on.
Do you have any idea how much stuff I had to miss because I tore my Achilles? I tore my Achilles at the X Games snowboarding. 2 weeks later is the Super Bowl celebrity flag game. The next day is the NFL celebrity flag game. Week after that, I missed a lot of stuff, man. Week after that was All-Star game, the celebrity basketball game. I missed a lot of things. And this is a situation where they say, hey, you could either get surgery or not get surgery. If I don't have to get surgery, don't cut me up. Please don't put me under no knife. So I feel the same with him. And then now, I don't know what his medical history is, but once you get surgery, every time they ask, have you had surgery before? You got to say yes. Yep. So if you have the chance to say no, and I'm sure that surgery might not have sped up his recovery, because that's what they told me. They said, look, it's going to be the same recovery time, same rate of re-injury. So I'm like, okay, cool. If everything's the same, then I'm gonna stay the same. I'm going to stay in one piece. Don't cut me up. So that's how I feel about him opting not to get surgery. You know, I'm sure that wasn't a decision himself. I'm sure he had his group that he talked to about it, his coaches, trainers, whatever it may be, and they decided that was the best thing for him. And I don't blame him. Why go out in the combine when you already know you're going to get poked and pried at? You already know you're going to get paired. They don't care on that paper whether you had surgery a couple weeks ago. They don't care. They just see the result. You can't fault a player who's already solidified himself in that top conversation to go out there and hurt his stock when he knows he's not even ready yet.
No, I agree. And then there's another defensive lineman that did not participate in many drills, but he did get his measurements done, and that's Mason Graham, the D tackle from Michigan. He had 32-inch long arms. They thought he was going to be 320 pounds. He was only 296. I'll be the first to tell you, I had 32-inch long arms. At defensive tackle, it doesn't matter. They want him to be 320. He's 296 and can move like he does. I'm good at 296. Maybe he puts 4 or 5 pounds back on, gets over 300. I'm not worried about Mason Graham either. I think, some of the quarterbacks who struggled at times, that is probably going to hurt him a little bit, but they had to take that risk to go out there and do the things that they wanted to do and try to bump up earlier in the round. AJ, you're speaking of analysts. The guest we have on today, it is his job to deep dive into all of these players. We got Dan Orlovsky coming on today.
Perfect. We got a lot of questions for him.
Orlovsky has skyrocketed, man. I mean, he played for 12 seasons, 4 teams. He's watched a lot of ball. He's been a backup throughout his career, but he's seen a lot of great players, and he's watched a lot of film, and that's typically how you end up playing for 12 seasons at that position. I need to hear about the quarterbacks. Obviously, as an offensive lineman, don't know as much. So excited to have Dan on today.
Hey, we've got Dan the man. We're not going to waste no time. We're going to dive in because you are the perfect person to mediate this banter between me and Pugh on a weekly basis. The first thing we started off with was talking about how important we think the combine is when it comes to evaluating a player. Just truly evaluate them as a full package.
Yeah, I think it's way less important now than it used to be years ago. I actually said this to somebody this morning who was there, who's been in a role of decision-making. And he's like, I still like to see them move in person. So I think there's value to it. I do. I don't want to minimize it. But one, the tape is so readily available now. Two, we have tracking devices on all these players nowadays, both in the NFL and college. So you could see when a receiver or a back is running at a certain mile per hour. So like the information and data that they have is a lot better. But I do think that there's value in just watching them move in person. So I can appreciate that. You guys know, like when you go watch a guy move, even as a kid, sometimes you're like, oh, you move differently than everybody else. So I think that there is value in that. Obviously, spending time with those guys in person, watching how they interact with each other. I mean, that was one of the things that you heard come off of the Combine weekend this past weekend was people were saying Cam Ward, who's probably going to be the first quarterback taken, reminded them just in the interaction with people, the way that he, I guess, moved between the groups a lot similar to Jaden Daniels, who obviously had a tremendous success as a rookie. So I think there's value in it, but I think it's like one of the least valuable parts of the offseason process.
So when we talk about the Combine, obviously on the field, throwing to your receivers, not having your guys there, being an uncomfortable situation, what are some of the other things that people don't realize at home right now? Maybe the medical or in the meeting rooms that players go through. And if you have any good stories about that, I'd love to hear them from your time.
Oh, I got a great story. Yeah. So I think a lot of stuff that people don't know, obviously the medical is, extreme because you're just standing up there in the testing. Sometimes, I don't know how they're doing it nowadays, but I remember being in a girdle. So just like in underwear and basically like in a line one by one, being like, all right, you're in alphabetical order one by one. And, you just walk up to the stage and they measure you and get on a scale. And you're like, this is awkward. So I think there's that. I think the way that the meetings go are different. I've heard people reference the speed dating part of it. I don't want to call it my favorite Combine story, but probably my most curious Combine story was I came out in 2004, 2005. I went to the Combine, and I was meeting with the Saints, and this is when their head coach was Jim Haslett, I believe. And so I go in for one of those, Justin, there's like those 15-minute meetings. Stephen A.'s looking at me. Those 15-minute meetings where like you stay in the same room essentially, and the teams kind of rotate between the rooms. So I'm sitting there, and I just got done with one meeting, and the Saints came in there. And I don't know how many people were a part of the team that came in, the group that came in, but they sat across from your basic table from me, and Jim Haslett just sat there face to face 3 or 4 feet apart from me. And for the 15 minutes, not a single word was made. They didn't say hello. They just sat there, and Haslett just looked at me. And so like me, I'm still obviously young in the moment. I'm sitting there going, what do I do? Because a lot of these guys, they get prepped going into it. This is what you do. This is what you say. This is what you don't say. So I'm like, what do I do? And so we sat there for 12 to 15 minutes, didn't say a single word to each other. They got up and left.
So did you call your agent after and said, hey, I'm not going to the Saints?
I was like, I have no idea what just happened, but that night, that was like I don't know if I did the right thing or the wrong thing.
What's going through your mind? You didn't even say, hey, coach, or after the haze, it was just nothing was said.
Well, I was just so concerned with, is this a test? Is he trying to? Is he expecting me to do something? Am I? If you say something, is it the wrong thing? If you don't say something, it's the wrong thing. And so I certainly froze, but I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what was like the right thing to do, given what I felt like was a predetermined. This is how we're going to go about it with this guy.
I mean, what would you have done if you got that call draft night and you answer the phone, you're hello, and it's just. You're just sitting there thinking, I guess I'm going to New Orleans. I guess I'm going there.
When you're looking at the quarterbacks in particular going to the Combine, there's always this, should I throw? Should I not throw? Should I do? What should I let them see? Do you have any issue with the 2 top projected quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, not participating in drills?
I don't have an issue with it. No, I like when they throw. I do. I appreciate when they throw. I like when they throw. I don't think it's you're lacking competition or you're lacking confidence when you don't do it. Some guys just, and I don't even know how often these players individually make a decision. Sometimes it's the rep that you have as an agent or the group that you have training you. And the last 3 guys that we've had haven't done it. So you're not going to do it either. So I don't have an issue with it, but I do like to see those guys throw. I also don't think that they throw the routes that are that common nowadays, at least from, the style wise. But I always say, like, if you can go chuck it and you want to go make a statement, go throw it around, I don't negatively knock guys who don't do it, though.
So, what are your biggest concerns with Cam and Shador going into the draft?
So I got my notebook here. I don't have a ton of concerns with Cam Ward, to be honest with you. Like, Cam is my number one quarterback, and I don't think it's all that close for me right now. I also think the way that we've talked about Cam, or some people have talked about Cam, isn't accurate in my opinion. Like, everyone's going, well, this year's class isn't last year's class. That might be true. There's 6 first-rounders last year. But we're talking, well, if Cam Ward, where would he slot last year? I would actually probably have Cam somewhere in that top 4, top 5, and you're still saying pretty darn good player, because those guys, those rookie years, especially those top 3 kids, played really well. I think these are the things that I like about Cam Ward. And again, he would be my number 1 pick. If I was the Titans, I wouldn't move off of the number 1 pick. I would take Cam Ward. I think he sees the field post snap really clean. I think he's super, super, super accurate with his ball placement, consistently makes good decisions. That was a little bit of a surprising thing, because everyone talks about him being this run around creative athlete. I think his mechanics are flawless from the pocket. His misses, when he does, they don't miss by a lot. It's like, oh man, you missed it by an inch or 2 down the field. I think his feet and eyes are tied together really well. I think he throws over the field incredibly clean, throws the ball in the seams really clean. I think he's had moments in games where he takes games over, like just took games over. The one flaw that I have with him is he'll make you hold your breath. Like, if you're the offense, in either way, like, he'll make you hold your breath, because like Cam will go run, go make a play, and you'd be like, this could end up really good. Or sometimes you're like, why the heck did you do that? So that would be the only flaw. But I think he's a really, really, really good player. And I would be, and I actually I played with a family member of his, and I texted him. I was like, tell me about him. And he raved about him. He's like, yo, this dude is a stud. Great leader, great character, hasn't been given anything. So I think he reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield. He's very fluid but twitchy. Shador, I like Shador. I think Shador does a lot of good stuff. Part of Shador's evaluation is hard. His offensive line's terrible. Like, there's some games you're like, no, I'm not even going to watch the game, because they can't protect. I think he plays in time. I think he plays in rhythm. I think he predetermines pocket leave sometimes too early, and then has moments when pocket movement is really good. I think he throws into tight windows really clean. But there are some moments where I'm like, I want you to do something on tape that pops off the screen, that like, whoa, off the screen. That doesn't happen that enough for me right now. He's tough as absolute nails. And I don't think he took over games at times the way I wanted him to.
Well, when you look at both these quarterbacks, obviously there's a couple of things that can make or break a quarterback situation, and where these guys end up is a major, major factor in the success for some of these quarterbacks. So if you're looking at the top 5, and obviously you have Tennessee and Cleveland 1, 2, both New York teams are looking for a quarterback. The Raiders are looking for a quarterback. Do you see a better fit for these players and those 5 teams that I mentioned? Like, what's the ideal team for each one of those players to end up on?
Yeah, I think Cam Ward and Tennessee make a lot of sense. A couple things. One, I still think Tennessee, because of their makeup as a organization with Brian Callahan and Bill Callahan, Justin, you know this, like there is the desire to run the ball. Like, there is the desire to have that be a focus point. But also the pass game style that Callahan runs, I think, complements Cam Ward well. Sometimes he wants to play drop back, get it out of your hand football. Great. I love that. And Cam can do that. Like, get it out quick. Sometimes he wants to create the play action passes over the middle of the field. Great. And so I'm not going to put him in the Joe Burrow conversation, but I do think there's a little bit of that stylistically that is there. Again, I think Baker Mayfield in that regard. If you were going to tell me, for Shador, Shador has to have – you want Shador to have a really clean pocket, almost you would say like a Geno Smith or a Jared Goff. And so Jets, no. Giants, no. I think the Raiders have some young offensive linemen that I'm a little bit more intrigued by than some people. I do like the fact that Chip's been in both college football and the NFL. So the Raiders I can see with Shador, but out of those top groups, those would be the two places that I feel most comfortable about.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, obviously the offensive line has a lot to play. I think the Jets' offensive line is a little better. They were banged up last year at times.
Yeah.
Hopefully Olu Fashanu can come back and kind of he was putting some really, really good things on film. So I think the Jets probably are that third team that could bring in a young quarterback and have him set up for success, especially with the talent that you have around. When you can turn around the handoff to Breece Hall and then get it out there to Garrett Wilson, that definitely takes some pressure off.
No, I agree with the Jets thing. I think the big thing too is, and both the Jets and the Giants, like you have to, as an organization, understand the talent you have on the perimeter, and you got to marry it with the right quarterback. Both those teams, everyone talking about Garrett. Garrett's a star. You got to make sure that you get a quarterback that allows him to become that star. Malik Neighbors is a star. You got to make sure that you get a quarterback that allows him to go and become the star that is necessary. So, I think both, but I don't think either of those I think they're different. I think the Giants have to figure out the quarterback position now, because if they don't win by November, they're going to fire everybody. That's just the reality of that league. The Jets, I don't know if the Jets have to chase quarterback right now. I do think that they can be a little bit more build-centric and maybe go for a Justin Fields rather than we got to draft a guy this year.
So look, in terms of building, these top 5 teams we're talking about and some of the teams that we know need a quarterback, do you think there's a world where any of them opt and go grab Travis Hunter?
Oh, absolutely. Travis would be the one guy that I could have a conversation at number 1 with. Again, I think I'm very, very adamant. I think Tennessee should take Cam. But I could sit down and around a table have a very big time discussion about Travis Hunter. So, I was saying this morning, if you're the Giants and you're at 3, right, and let's say Cam Ward goes number 1 and Shador goes number 2 or Abdul Carter goes number 2 or somebody goes number 2. If you're the Giants and you say, okay, this is our plan. We're going to sign Aaron Rodgers as a free agent. May not love it, but it's our best thing right now. We're going to draft Travis Hunter at 3. And then with the second or third pick, I think in the second round, we're going to draft Jalen Milroe out of Alabama. So now we're sitting there going, well, we got on offense Neighbors and Travis Hunter. Travis can play a little bit of DB. And then you're going, all right, Aaron can play for maybe September, keep us afloat, and see how it goes. And then Brian Dable, who has ties to Alabama, obviously knows Nick Saban well. If anybody's ever heard Nick Saban talk about Jalen Milroe, he raves about him. Go back to Brian Dable's time in Buffalo with the quarterback run. And for, a coach, I think Dable's a really good coach, but there's just the reality of a desperation and urgency. All of a sudden, you might get into October, November, and you're doing okay, but you need a punch. And here comes Jalen Milroe and his ability to push the ball downfield to now both of those people on the outside, but also the freaking athletic quarterback run that he can deploy. That's when you go, all right, he's not going to be perfect. He's going to have misses, yes. But that has my attention if I'm a Giants fan.
All right, so you mentioned Jalen Milroe in there. Is he quarterback 3 for you, or is Jackson Dart sneaking somewhere in there? I got my guy Kyle McCord at Syracuse, Howard.
Yo, dog,
yeah, Jackson Dart,
great franchise. Let's acknowledge that he just built a great scenario.
As a Giant guy, I'm thrilled for that one.
Yeah. I'm sitting there damn, I would use that team in Madden.
Right? I just think it's interesting too. If you're the Giants, you're okay, you got to get a guy who might be the best player in the draft. Certainly in the conversation, and he's not going to fail. If you guys know, when you're drafting these guys earlier, all right, why would they fail? Travis not. Travis is an unbelievable talent, great work ethic, unbelievable kid, just wants to play ball. He's not going to fail. So, but they obviously have to address the quarterback position. No, Jackson Dart, Justin, for me, would be the third quarterback, and I think he's going to creep into that top 20 in the first round. I just do. Style-wise, when you watch him, he reminds me of Jalen Hurts. And what I mean by that is this. As a thrower, as a passer, he's only progressed. He's only developed. If you had to ask me, what's the one thing passing-wise Jalen does well and has for 3 years now? Throw the ball down the field. Like, he's as good as a deep ball thrower as we got in the league, specifically on the go route. Jackson Dart does that really well. I think the second thing is when you watch him run, he's just a bull. He's tough. And that's kind of how I feel about Jalen, just kind of boxy and tough and like bull in a china shop. And maybe it's not the home runs that we get from a player like Lamar, but it's just like a big physical run. So I like Dart. And so I think he creeps into that conversation. That next group of guys is probably the McCord and Jalen Milroe group. Obviously, two very different talents. I haven't studied Kyle enough yet, but I think Kyle's got a chance to be into that second or third round group.
Look, something you did with the Giants, you built out that perfect scenario, and
You like that one?
I really like that one. I want you to do it again. First, I want your reaction to that Debo trade, and then with the draft coming up between him and potential draft picks, how much more dangerous can Washington get?
Okay, this is like the most fascinating question to me in the whole NFL offseason. I love Washington. I'm gonna answer the second question first. I love what they did. I want to give them praise. Awesome. You can't, and they cannot allow the end result of last season to sugarcoat what they really are. They won 5 games on the last play of the year. That's not real in the NFL. If you win 3 of them on the last play of the game, that's not real. So, while what they accomplished was awesome and Jaden was sensational, winning 5 games on the last play of the game and also being absolutely ridiculous on fourth down are not going to consistently carry over annually. I'm not banking on it, at least. So everyone's like, how close are they to the Super Bowl? And I'm like, you better not be thinking that if you're Washington, because it's not like they are a move or 2 away. I think Washington has to have the mindset of no, we lost those 5 games on the last play of the season, and we got to build our roster to attack some of those deficiencies and or reasons why. And so while I really want to congratulate and applaud them, I don't think they're that close to the Super Bowl window just yet. And I do like the Debo move. I like it for 2 reasons. One, obviously Debo is one of the most, if not one of the most versatile piece in the league. Their offense with Cliff was really versatile last year. They ran 2 backs about as much as anybody in the NFL. I think they can use Debo in that regard with an Eckler and a Brian Robinson, so I like that. They also threw more perimeter screens than anybody in the NFL. Debo's the guy that you want to get the ball to in his hands on the perimeter. I still want them to add another wide receiver piece. I still want them maybe a little bit more of a true wide receiver rather than just a touches guy opposite Debo. So while I love Washington and what they've got going on, I just don't think they narrow the gap to the Philadelphias, the Detroits, and the Rams. Yes, but it's not like it was narrowed that much by that one move.
Well, I want to see the Commanders go out and continue to address that offensive line. I know the left tackle they had, they think he might bump into guard. They're going to obviously go to the draft to kind of retool the trenches, continue to add pieces to that. When you have that rookie quarterback, you can go take a leap of faith and go trade for a guy like Debo, bring on his $17.5 million because you're not paying top quarterback money. But to take it back to the combine for a second and where the Commanders and other teams might go non-quarterback players, who is someone that made some money at the combine, or who's a name out there that was at the combine that you're super high on and now even higher after the combine?
I'd say the receiver out of Texas, Matthew Golden. There's a lot of his tape so I'll go to this. Any receivers that get taught and brought up in the system that Steve Sarkisian runs, I'm automatically going to value and like. They're very. Their skill development in their route running matters. The way that they change where they line up on the field matters. There's a lot, and this isn't necessarily meant to be like this negative, but a lot of receivers in college football line up in the same place all the time, whether it's on the right side or the left side, or they're outside the numbers, and that's all they kind of really know. And they only have 2 or 3 routes that they diversify themselves with. Golden, because Steve Sarkisian comes with a little bit of attachment to Kyle Shanahan, moves around a lot, cuts his splits a lot, has to run different releases off the line of scrimmage a lot, automatically advantage going into the NFL. Number 2, the physical talent that he has and the speed that he showed, because this is a class at wide receiver that it's not what it has been in the NFL draft over the past couple of years, and who's the number one guy or who's the first rounders and whatnot. So I think Golden is the guy that people are going to, after watching his tape a little bit, going to the combine, seeing some of the analytics, because I actually had I think the analytics and the numbers, going back to the combine question a little bit, I had a team that took a rookie this year, and the rookie was fantastic. And when I saw the team, I asked them about the rookie, and they told me he was actually almost like an analytics pick, that their analytics group took his numbers from his pro day and his combine performance, and they comped it over like this 20-year span of all the number data that they had. And he ranked so high in those analytics that was one of the reasons why, or the main reasons why, that he was their draft pick when he was. And they actually had him slotted at some higher players or because of that. And so I think that once they go back and look at his numbers performance, there's going to be a lot about his game that teams are going to like.
You got guys like Sam Darnold. You got guys like Teddy Bridgewater. You got guys like Myles Garrett. Even Tyreek Hill snuck something in. You got guys that are they could be used as that chess piece, especially with the draft coming up. How do you see that shaking up?
Yeah, it's always so fascinating because like even Micah Parsons with Dallas. So the one that I don't know how likely it is, but Myles Garrett seems pretty dug in. Like if you're Cleveland, okay, Myles has made it very clear. I've made a ton of money, and I've had the chance to sit with Myles and talk. And Myles, is unbelievably impressive when he speaks. Also has a great amount of appreciation and reverence for the history of his position in the NFL. The names that he brings up, it's not just like, I want to be Lawrence Taylor. Like, he brings up some names. I'm like, man, that's a long time ago. And so, I think that Myles is at the point in his career where he's like, I got to go win. My career is going to be an afterthought for people unless I go and win in those games. And so if you're Cleveland and you believe he's not moving, he's dug in, and this is what it is, and we don't like it and we don't want to do it, but it's just his reality and it's our reality. And you're going, all right, well, we don't love a quarterback at 2. Okay, so is there an organization that is willing to move off their quarterback if we give them Myles Garrett? Like Minnesota, what happens if Minnesota says we want to sign, Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold's market is only $35 million, and we're willing to pay Sam Darnold $35 million? So then where does J.J. McCarthy factor in? Because, and this goes back to what Cleveland, and this is sometimes where people need to understand, these teams meet with these quarterbacks, and sometimes people are like, well, he's not going to be there when you draft. Well, they're not just doing it for that year, but in 2, 3, 4 years, if he ever did become available. And so if Cleveland loved J.J. McCarthy coming out of Michigan last year, and then all of a sudden Sam Darnold goes back to Minnesota, Myles Garrett doesn't want – so now if you're Cleveland, like, all right, well, we loved JJ and Myles doesn't want to be here. Can we trade Myles for JJ and a first-round pick or something like that? And so I do think Myles is the name that people are paying attention to. Micah Parsons, well, how much does he want? Is Dallas able to give him that? Does that become a person where they sit there and go, we're never going to agree on the same contract? And Micah, we're further away than we want to be right now to actually winning. Does Micah Parsons become a piece that gets moved? I know that's been talked about. It doesn't sound like Tyreek is going to get moved because it seems like they've kind of quieted some of the noise at the end of the season. But I think Myles would be the one that seems most interesting right now.
And I think after seeing what Saquon Barkley did in Philadelphia and how that changed his whole narrative, Philadelphia is obviously another team that has stepped up. And you're like, how could they possibly make it happen? But Howie Roseman is a cat magician, and seems like time and time again, he just figures out ways to make it work.
Dude, do you know who their most expensive player is next year, Philadelphia? It's Jalen. And his number cap is 20. So their most expensive player is $20 million. That is the least most expensive player out of anybody in the NFC. So all the other teams in the NFC, their most expensive player is more than $20 million. They got the window to do it.
It's just because of how they put those voided years. They have almost 4 times the amount of money in voided years. The Browns actually took the same philosophy. Andrew Berry took the same philosophy. He just gave a lot of money to Deshaun, and that didn't work out so well. You mentioned Sam Darnold. You think it's Minnesota? He ends up back there, potentially maybe traded though, but back from Minnesota to start.
I don't know how likely it is that he's there, but I do think they start the conversation together. Two-sided. One, if you're Minnesota, you were really good last year with Sam. And so, like, are you really going to let him, both the talent and the person that your team fell in love with, walk out of the building? Now, I think there's a clear line of demarcation number wise. Sam, we like you at this number, and this is how we want to do it, but we're not going to go to this number. And so, if you're the team, I think you start there. And if you're Sam, the guy who's been quarterbacking hell for every year of his career, but this one, do you really want to run from that for an extra, and I don't money or an extra $8 million or something? Like you're gonna get a ton of money, and so like if you're Sam and it's 40 million and 30 million in Minnesota, or 40 million in Pittsburgh. Are you really running from it? Like I think as a quarterback, you're sitting there going, once you realize how good it is, and this is how the small fraction of the NFL lives quarterback wise, I don't think you want to run from it. So if not Minnesota, I think the best place for him is Las Vegas.
Okay, Las Vegas. And you mentioned that earlier. Aaron Rodgers. I know we mentioned potentially have him in this Giants scenario. Is there any other quarterbacks out there? Maybe Kirk Cousins. I know Atlanta said, hey, we're not cutting him. They're probably going to release him before his March signing bonus is due. Cleveland could be a place because they're still in this cap hell. Could you see him going to Cleveland? Is Kirk Cousins a name that's still going to move?
Yeah, I still think Kirk is very much on play with Cleveland. The really interesting part of it is, like, if you're Cleveland, you better be dead set on that happening, because it feels like if Atlanta is going to cut him, it'll be a post-June cut. Obviously, free agency starts in a week, and then the drafts end in April. So if you're going to pass on players at that position, you better be convinced and make sure your information's 100% accurate that you're going to get Kirk to come. When Kirk was with Stefanski in Minnesota, and I know it's years ago, but 18 and 19, his QBR was or passer rating was 108. So he balled with Stefanski. And I actually think the Browns are closer. They just got to get a quarterback. They're way closer to being a good football team than their record kind of implies. Justin Fields is an interesting one, because if we're sitting here and everyone lauds, Sam Darnold and how young he is. Justin's in the same group, and it's like, the Fields one frustrates me because I wish they had just stuck with them last year, because we would know kind of over the course of a season and a little bit of a better situation. I could see Fields in New York with the Jets. Like if you're the Jets and you don't jump at 8 in the draft, why not Justin Fields and kind of see how he can develop as a quarterback? Because I don't think you have to win this year if you're the Jets.
Dan, we appreciate the time. I really, really got some great insight here from the quarterbacks and the quarterback play. You need a quarterback is what we come to the conclusion of.
No doubt.
Don't have one of those guys, you're not going to win a lot of games. But Dan, thanks for the time, man.
Thanks, guys. Good to be with you.
Appreciate it, man. I really love that Giants thing he did. Building that dream scenario. I'm telling you, man, he need to look into being a GM, because that was a great scenario that I'm sure all the Giants front office people are going to ignore. But first, it's going to be very interesting to see how me and you come up with the way too early draft picks.
All right, so let's both look at it. I mean, obviously the Tennessee Titans hold the number 1 pick. They definitely are in need of a quarterback. They had Will Levis, who didn't really pan out. They brought in Mason Rudolph, who I think is serviceable enough to get you to that next guy. I think they're going to trade out of this pick. I think there's some teams that are really in a need for a quarterback. I'm looking at the New York Giants, a team that I play for. I'm looking at the New York Jets, a team right down the street. I'm looking at Vegas. Everyone was talking about Matthew Stafford and how those guys all wanted to get into the mix there. Stafford was skiing with Tom Brady. I think Vegas may jump into one and take their preferred option between Shador and Cam Ward first.
Here's my thing about the trade, right? If you have the one spot, right, and you don't want a quarterback, why not just go get what you want? Or is it the fact that, like, if you take him at number 1, they get an automatic X amount of money? You tell me that part.
Well, yeah, there is more money you're paying the number 1 player. But if you're looking at, like, trading back, you might get multiple first-round picks. Like, a team trading up is probably going to trade their first-round pick this year plus a first-round pick next year and probably, a second or a third-round pick going forward. So you get a king's ransom, and then you can go get a bunch of dudes at a position, because the Titans are not good. They need a lot of help. they could use more than just one player to help turn this franchise around. Everyone always says you got to start with the quarterback, but I believe you got to build through the trenches. So if I'm the Titans, if teams are offering multiple first round picks, I'm trading out of one because I need a ton of help. All
Me
right, if they're
personally,
staying at one, who would you take first overall in this
Travis
draft?
Hunter.
Travis Hunter. There you go.
Travis Hunter. You take Travis Hunter. I don't even care, honestly, respectfully, thoroughly. I don't even care if you're the Raiders. You take Travis Hunter, and then you figure out the quarterback. Word. Because I feel like if you're a quarterback, you should want to go throw the ball at Travis Hunter. That's just me. That's no glaze either. But I'm saying in terms of a guy that can help make a quarterback look good, a guy that can help make the entire organization just turn around. I feel like Travis Hunter gets that ball rolling wherever he lands at. Whether you need a quarterback, whether you need a receiver, a DB, an offensive lineman, or a head coach, you take Travis Hunter and then you figure it out afterwards. That's just
No,
me.
I'm with you, man. He's probably the best player in this draft, non-quarterback, but quarterbacks just command a premium. I think someone trades for the pick, and then I think they take either Shador or Cam Ward one. Cleveland Browns are number 2. They need a quarterback. Deshaun Reed ruptured the Achilles. You know how tough that is to deal with.
Yeah.
The Browns can't really spend a lot of money at quarterback. I think the Browns potentially take whatever quarterback is remaining because they get a quarterback on a rookie deal, and that helps offset some of that cap.
I don't know. The Browns have had pretty bad luck with drafting a rookie quarterback high.
True, true.
If you look at their track history of taking a high pick quarterback, they never pan out. And why? Because they get there and have nothing to work with. So
To the
again,
Browns.
if you take a quarterback at 1, if you're the Browns sitting at 2, you take Travis Hunter, bro. Like you
Well, you're
need a
saying
playmaker
Travis
to
is
come in
gone.
here.
Travis went 1 to Tennessee. Is
I'm
there
just
any?
going off of you're the stats guy. You're the first round pick.
Would
I'm
you?
not there. I'm
Would
going to look.
you?
I'm building up. Hey, I'm reacting off of your script. So you take Cam or Shador at 1. At 2, if you're the Browns, you take Travis Hunter. Because you've tried taking the high quarterback. They get there, they don't have nothing to work with. Give the Browns a playmaker that can take over the game. Travis Hunter. And
Yeah.
oh my God, and you know Cleveland's my favorite city to visit. If Travis goes to Cleveland, I'm going.
Hey, there we go. Trav, we'll see you there. All right, so we're saying it's going to be Trav somewhere in there. The
Now I'm
Giants are at
hoping he
3.
goes to the Browns.
Giants are at 3. I think it goes Cam Ward, Shador Sanders 1, 2. And I don't know who those teams are going to be. It's going to go 1, 2 them. And then the next team up is the New York Giants. And I think this is 3 is where I think Travis Hunter goes. He is
I
the
don't
best
think
player
so.
in this draft. He is a unicorn. I think it goes Cam, Shador, Travis. That's what I think my first 3 picks in this draft are. I think Cam has just shown time and time again that like all he's thinking about is football every single day. And at that quarterback position, I think he's the surefire. Shador has all the talent. He has everything. There's been some questions out there that, hey, he's making a lot of money off the field. Is he going to be 100% locked in on just playing quarterback? And that's the one area where I think Cam might sneak him out a little bit because talent's very similar.
Of the Titans, Browns, I think of the Titans, Browns, Giants, I feel like the Giants need the quarterback the most.
Well, what
So
I'm
I don't see
saying
them
is,
taking Travis.
well, this is the thing, though. I don't know if the Giants will be at 3. I just think picks 1, 2, 3, that's how they're going to go. The 2 teams that need quarterbacks are trading up into 1 and 2 to get them. And then 3, Travis Hunter, best available, you go Travis Hunter. That's kind of why I'm just saying I don't know who the teams are going to be. I just think I know the order in which they're going to come off the board. All right, so that's how we have the first 3 going. Now let's jump to New England. New England, who is the next best available? They had a terrible the defense was all right last year. I think they go offensive tackle here, and you're going to see Kelvin Banks from Texas go number 4 to the Patriots. Will Campbell, LSU, is everyone's number 1 guy. His arms were a little short. They think he might go to guard. I think Kelvin Banks from Texas will be the guy that ends up sneaking into that position, and he ends up going 4th overall to the Patriots because their offensive line was just not good last year. I mean, there's nothing sexy to say here. I think they go Kelvin Banks at 4, and then 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They need some help. They need some help everywhere. So I think the Jags might trade out of this one, but who goes 5? It's got to go Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter's going 5. I just don't think it's going to be the Jags.
All right, y'all, man. We had that point in the show where me and Justin about to recap and just yap real quick. I need to know from y'all, who do y'all think is going to be the number 1 pick, and who do y'all think is going to take Travis Hunter in this draft?
You already know what I think. Cam Ward, and I think whoever goes 3. I don't know who's going to be at 3, but that's who's taking Travis Hunter. It's the spot that is going to be, and that's Travis Hunter. Do you think, Dan mentioned it, do you think Jackson Dart makes it into the first round?
I have no idea, but that's for them to answer down in the comments, man. Appreciate y'all always rocking with us. Appreciate y'all staying active in these comments. Stay beautiful, y'all.